So, Rudi, the Three Principles movie site, tell us about that. How did that come to be?
Um, well, myself and my wife Jenny have been around the principles for a while, and I remember having a friend who's like a skeptic, and I was saying, crime went down. One community in America used to have the fourth highest homicide rate per capita sometimes in the nation to zero after the principles were introduced. And it's like, well, where's the research? Where's the videos? Where's the proof? And I was like, okay, we need you go online, this was maybe 6 years ago, and there's a couple of personal websites, but there wasn't anything online, nothing on YouTube. If you're lucky, you could find one or two Sid Banks videos, but that was it. So I was thinking, I want to create a global free resource that anybody anywhere in the world could get access to this understanding, really. And originally it was going to be like a documentary. Um, But having never even picked a video camera up in my life, I was thinking, well, how's that going to work? And so luckily, Richard Branson and Virgin credit cards, we managed to buy lots of gear we didn't know how to use, get a plane ticket to America and not really know how we're going to pay our rent in England, and then just went for it. And remember sitting at Jack Pransky's place in Vermont in America, and we were going to do the first interview, and I really didn't know what I was doing. Luckily, Jack was fantastic. In fact, Jack hasn't. We've actually recorded Jack since then, but he doesn't want it up. He wants his old one up because he says that was the best one I've done, even though the work that myself and Jenny doing was rubbish. The lighter was out and the audio was terrible and stuff. But then, just kind of meeting people, we ended up like in the Department of Alcohol and Drug Services in Santa Clara County in California, and we were interviewing the director there, who shares this understanding through numerous people to, I think, like tens of thousands of people in the county. And I was sitting there filming him, I was kind of thinking, I'm actually filming him. And then we were in prisons, and I was like, I'm in a prison filming. How's this happening? Like, and then we were in a community in Mississippi in America, like filming the community members. And again, I was sort of thinking, I'm actually in Mississippi filming, and somehow it's worked out. So the movie site, in a long-winded thing, was really to give proof, to give authenticity to the power that one simple truth can eradicate complexity. One simple truth can eradicate, or go a large part to eradicating human suffering. And since I had an experience a long time ago, the one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to help alleviate human suffering. And when I came across this, it was like, this is it. I just need to understand it myself, and I want to be able for other people to have access to it without having to pay loads of money.
So, eradicating human suffering is a pretty bold thing to say, and I just wonder what sort of steps can be taken now to spread the word and help the millions of people around the world have that sort of suffering eradicated.
Well, having said that, I don't think you can eradicate human suffering. But what you can do is share simple truth that changes people's relationship to what they define as suffering. So, personal metaphor, like I think Jenny said in an interview, you went to Nepal. Every night there's aftershocks. Well, most nights there's aftershocks, and so the room, I'll be asleep, the room would start shaking, and then I would wake up with a big adrenaline buzz, and that happened every night for 5 weeks. And I was severely sleep deprived. I was ill. I'd lost weight. I was suffering, but I was able to share the three principles every day to literally every day to huge different populations. So my experience with suffering, like there was things in the world, I mean, of course it's all relative. It's not as if I'm living in a tent and all the rest of it. I was living in good accommodation, but relatively speaking I was suffering. But there was an ease to knowing where my experience of suffering was coming from. So the one simple truth of where human experience comes from, you know, suffering and non-suffering, happiness and sadness, peace of mind and anger. It's all coming from the same place, the same source. So seeing how that works does change your relationship to suffering. And again, I know that my father passed away a year ago, and you know, you would say that is an unpleasant experience, but my experience of that was, I want to say, happiness is not in there. It was just a deep gratitude and a richness to life that really helped me connect to life more. Before this understanding, it wouldn't been a nice experience at all. So I think you can't alleviate human suffering, but you can put people in touch with a very simple truth of where all experience comes from. And insightfully seeing that changes our relationships to suffering, changes our relationship to mental suffering, physical suffering, the suffering of others and the suffering of ourselves. And reconnects us to an already present, pre-existing, benign energy behind life that doesn't have an agenda. We give it agenda, but reaffirms home, reaffirms where we come from, reaffirms the nature of creation. But it's not a man-made thing. It's pre-existing. It's built into the nature of life, and was here before humanity arose, and will be here when humanity disappears at some stage. It's an energy behind life. And I think Jen was saying in an interview, but that formless, intelligent energy creates for us as humans a paradigm in which life works, that we can grasp, that we can practically see and experience within our own life. And so, again, coming back to the question about suffering, I think as we share the paradigm of how life works, it does alleviate human suffering. Its purpose isn't to alleviate human suffering, but an outcome is that. And
this idea of the simple truth, then, would you say more about that?
Oh, blimey. Keeping on the theme of human suffering, I would say individually and globally, we suffer in direct correlation to our own misunderstanding of where it comes from. All global epidemics, all wars, all power struggles, famine, wars, all of it is symptoms of a misunderstanding. There's one solution to world peace, if you like, and one cause, and it's the same: misunderstanding. The misunderstanding, and this sounds innocuous, it sounds simple, it sounds like it really isn't very important, but that one simple truth is that we think our experience of life comes from something other than our thinking in this moment. Because to build on that, when we think people outside of us, a situation outside of us, is making us feel like we do, we immediately try to control out there. We immediately blame out there. But when we see that out there is happening, but our experience of out there can only come to us via thought. Like when we worked with some of the earthquake survivors in Nepal, I said to the big group, if we all fell asleep right now in this room and there's a huge earthquake and all the walls were shaking, and then we woke up after the earthquake, we would have no idea there's an earthquake. We wouldn't have any thinking, no fear about the earthquake. But if we were awake, obviously we'll experience it. When you take thought out of the equation, there is no experience. So this isn't about thinking. We're talking about the power to think. The power to think is the only thing that gives us our experience in this moment. And that is how, if if you show a big spider like a tarantula to a group of people, I'll be the first person to run up there and want it to crawl all over me. But most people, or maybe half the people, will, oh my God, there's a spider. Some people will be so terrified they'll run away. So is it the spider giving us our feeling? Because if the spider was the thing giving us our feeling, then everyone will probably have the same feeling. Is the spider sending out psychic signals, making people feel what they feel? Well, no. What's happening is that spider in the world, our psychology, the missing link between both is our thinking of spider, thought of spider. So if you get rid of this, you have nothing. So seeing the one simple truth that we cannot have any experience outside of thought. For me, that one simple truth has totally transformed my life, my relationships, my connection to something beyond all of it. Because I'm not judging, I'm not blaming the outside world. Well, I still do actually, when I forget, but quite often I remember, and that remembrance takes us home again.
Great, thank you. And the future of the Three Principles movies, how do you see it?
I think I've spent 5 years working on it. 2 years, I've kind of worked out I spent 2 years full time working on it, kind of voluntarily. And it's taken up so much of my life now that I've had thoughts of kind of selling it or something and like just kind of like moving on. But I finally got it to where I really want it. It's kind of clean, contemporary, it's all working. It took years for it to work properly. And so I think we're just going to add to it. But the other thing is we're starting to create a documentary about the Three Principles, like a broadcast quality TV documentary that will be filmed very, very creatively with actors and locations and a script. That's like the next big project. So we're going to kind of use the movie site to start promoting that and show clips from it and kind of build it up. Because although I love what I have created, because it's kind of for free, I don't want to spend a huge amount of time. Like with interviews, I love to do it outside, people walking, like cutaways, like just make it really creative. But anyone in the creative field knows to do that is an enormous amount of time, whereas just getting someone sitting and having 1 or 2 camera angles is quite easy. So the movie site is great, but I really want to kind of get creative now and create something really beautiful. And so the future of the movie site, I think it will just go to strength. There'll be less stuff going up, but it'll be much higher quality. And the main purpose of the documentary is to get this well outside the Three Principle community, just to the average man, if there is such a thing as an average man, woman and child on the street. Because, again, you can't talk about the forces or the spiritual nature so easily, but you can talk about the paradigm in which they create. For instance, I don't understand gravity. They used to think that larger bodies attracted smaller bodies. Now they're saying it's an indentation in space-time. But scientists don't get the forces that create space-time or gravity, but they know that, things go down. We can see that, it's observable. And so to create a documentary about the observable, practical parts of the Three Principles that people can logically get and then experience within themselves, I think will go a great way to help alleviate human suffering.
So when can we look forward to the finished product?
Oh, crikey. Well, I think we've done some remedial filming. We've got a lot more to do. So I wouldn't imagine at least for about 1.5 years.
Yeah, great. Well,
probably 2 years.
Great, Rudi. Thanks very much. We'll look forward to that.
Thank you for the interview.
That's great.